Hey everyone, and welcome back to another budget reset for the month of June. So if you've watched any of my recent videos, and particularly my recent monthly reset video for June, you'll know that May was a pretty hectic month in terms of finances, and I did speak about just that there were so many things going on, and yeah, it was just really hectic. We did actually do some travel to Japan earlier in the month, so we did have a few more expenditures than what we would have otherwise. But yeah, overall, it was a pretty good month actually, and when I go into the review of May today, you'll see that we did have a little bit left over for, I guess you would call it play money, but essentially for us, it'll probably be going into savings or for other things like for our baby who will be due in August. I'm currently 29 weeks pregnant, basically at the recording of this video. So we do actually have to get a few things organized there. So that money will definitely be put to good use. And I did actually end up earning a little bit more than what I thought I was going to last month, which was really good. In terms of June though, there'll be quite a few expenses that are coming along for June, which I'm just kind of not really wanting to think about too much right now. But since it is the budget reset, we have to put these things in. Otherwise, if I didn't do this, I just don't even know how I'd survive anymore. I really think the last year, and it's been pretty much a full year now of me doing these budget reset videos. So to think that kind of before that time, we weren't tracking things as specifically as we should have been and really not knowing on paper where our money was going. It's just crazy to me to think about that now and think that we had no idea what we were spending each month. And I'm not going to lie, for anyone who hasn't really done budgets like this before, it can be really shocking and it can be very confronting and very overwhelming. And to see what the expenditures are for just a basic person who's paying rent or who's a homeowner these days, it's incredible, pretty much outrageous that we are actually in these positions having to pay this amount of money, especially I just kind of think back to even my days of early renting that was years ago now, over 10 years ago. And it's just oh my God, my expenditures were just so much less then. And now with this housing crisis and with, I guess people either, like I said, renting or mortgage owners, either way, you're paying out an exorbitant amount of money just on those two things, just on your living situation. This is not even including your everyday living expenses like food and basics, your subscriptions, especially if you run a business like me. I have other expenses that I have to factor in as well each month. And although it's great that I can claim those expenses on tax, that doesn't happen for a year. So I have to really be careful still of what I'm spending each month and really look at cutting things down if it does start to get a bit out of control. So we're going to go through May's budget anyway first and kind of reflect on the month overall and what our targets were that we met, what our targets were that we didn't meet, because there was a few that we actually didn't meet, but luckily between Dan and I, we actually earned a little bit more money than what we were expecting to for May. So like I said, that wasn't actually too bad after all. But let's delve into it because June's going to be a bit hectic too. But before I jump into May's budget, I am going to introduce myself because I always forget that there are some newcomers to the channel and I always forget to introduce myself in my own videos half the time. So for those of you who are new here, my name is Kaylee and I'm a beauty and fashion photographer based near Sydney, Australia, but I'm also a content creator and I started this channel a few years ago to talk about all things business, social media, freelancing, and content creation. I've definitely taken a little bit more of a lifestyle turn though lately with my content here, and I kind of want to continue doing that because I think that some of that content can be a little bit more relatable or interesting, hopefully for people. So I am going to continue doing these monthly budget reset videos. And for those of you who are interested in the templates that I'm currently using, these are actually from CoPlenty. So I've mentioned this in these videos before, but again, if you're new to this, CoPlenty actually have a range of budgeting templates, whether it be for travel or for your day-to-day expenses, yearly expenses. They have a really, really good range of templates for this. They also have a really good goal and habit tracker, which I quite often mention in my monthly reset videos. And if you're interested in purchasing any of these, there is actually an affiliate link in the description box below and a discount code if you are interested in checking them out. They're all very affordable and I just think that they're so great in this kind of day and age to really keep track of everything in your life. And coming from someone who's not quite a type A personality, but someone who would love to be, these spreadsheets do help me out immensely. And I'm sure that they're probably helping out a lot of people out there at the moment. But without further ado, let's jump into May and have a look at how the budget went for the months. So here we are in the May budget spreadsheet, and you can see there's a lot of numbers happening. And to be honest, it does kind of make me feel sick when I look at the actuals and the budgeting and the actual money that we are bringing in each month and then the money that goes out, it's really hard to reflect on that sometimes and just think like, surely there has to be a way to cut down on that. And unfortunately, I think for us with owning a home, with me having a business, sometimes there is just certain things that we can't cut back on. And I'm sure it's the same for a lot of people out there these days. It is incredibly hard to just cut back on your day-to-day living expenses, especially the necessities, which I'm going to go through. So let's start with our income for the month. And our total income for both Dan and I for the month of May was $9,220. So that is actually after tax. And I put all of the after tax amounts in the income section because there is no point me putting the before tax. Like neither of us see that money, so there's just no point in my personal opinion. And yeah, so $9,220, just shy of 10K for the month after tax. That was a good month. It's also very scary to see how much we have left over from that and thinking as well that this is actually a good month for us, which it was. So the left to spend for May was $1,249.24. So even though that looks like a huge difference, like you're probably wondering where that extra $8,000 went, which we're going to go through. Actually, having about $1,200 left over was still a pretty good month. And honestly, our budget for last month, if we look over in the financial overview section and we actually go down to the total left over for our budget, what we had actually budgeted originally, we did put down 1,528 as the total leftover amount. So our actual was 1,249. So we were only a couple $100 off that. Having said that, we also earned a little bit of extra money that I did speak about before. So that actually went to other uses, which again, I'll speak about shortly. So you can see here in the income section, pretty much everything was what it usually is. Although having said that, Dan did get a pay rise or a couple of pay rises recently, and we just didn't know how much that was all going to be. So I under budgeted for him again. I did that the last couple of months and it kind of worked well for us because we ended up just having that bit of a surprise amount that was a little bit more. So that was great. YouTube was a little bit less than expected. My sponsorships were pretty much bang on what I had estimated. They're usually pretty consistent. Having said that, if I do get a couple of extra sponsorships, that number can go up. And then retouching was where I actually managed to earn a little bit more because it was around like, I had estimated sort of a lot less work to do for it rather than what it actually was. So there was actually a little bit more work that I ended up doing for my client for the retouching, which was great because it ended up being pretty much double what I expected in income wise. So the income side of things was pretty good last month. The expenditures, this is where things get a little bit expensive. Obviously, I did say that we were traveling to Japan last month, so there was some expenses there that just simply wouldn't have been there in any other month. But if we just go through the bills part, you can see here that pretty much all the bills were pretty similar to what had been expected. Only thing was we hadn't actually put enough away for our gas bill, which ended up being due last month. And sometimes the utility bills like gas, water, the ones that are due quarterly can be a little bit confusing because we do tend to forget to write down when they're actually due. And I've even got the due date here, but sometimes it just can be a little bit confusing remembering when each is due. Technically, we hadn't actually put enough away specifically for the gas bill, and it was a little bit of a shock. I think we were just preoccupied with traveling, forgot about it, and then realized that we were about $50 out for the month with that. But apart from that, strata and council rates were the only other ones we didn't actually put money to last month. We actually decided against that because we wanted to put a little bit more into savings, and then we were going to take out the full amount pretty much from June instead because we knew that we would be able to cover it then, and we just needed that money a little bit earlier in our savings account specifically. So knowing that we could cover pretty much all of it in June anyway, we were just basically going to do that. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. But essentially we wanted things set aside for early June. We had a few things coming up and especially a few things that we had to buy for the baby. And that was kind of taking precedence over just putting that money aside too soon. So essentially that's what we did. And that's why there's a zero next to those numbers. But in June now, that's all actually been paid for at this point that I'm filming this video, which is great. So we were a little bit under for bills total for May, but that was because of that decision that we'd made. Going down to subscriptions and memberships, everything was pretty much the same there. The only thing that wasn't was my phone bill, and that's because I actually had been using my $5 roaming per day, so my bill was a little bit more expensive last month, which was only, I think, about a $20 difference overall to what we had budgeted. And then going up to expenses, now this is where things got a little bit crazy. So our groceries ended up being a little bit more last month. We did end up spending just that little bit more because I'd actually budgeted a little bit less for groceries last month, thinking that we were going to be spending a lot more on dining out, which we did in Japan. So we wouldn't have to spend maybe as much on groceries as we usually would. But since we had actually overspent a little bit on the dining out when we were in Japan, by the time we got back home, we didn't really want to spend too much on dining out overall. So we really went back to groceries. So that's why that's a little bit higher. And then obviously dining out was about $400 over, which was about $500 combined between groceries and dining out. But look, I think sometimes when you've got a trip, it's hard to know and to set those budgets. And especially when you're not wanting to restrain yourself too much when you're on these trips as well. So I think for the most part, like, we were not going to fancy restaurants or anything in Japan. We were not doing anything too over the top. It was pretty much like Family Mart, 7-Eleven, like all those kinds of convenience stores. So we definitely made use of them. And I think sometimes, you know, you're just going to have those times where you do go over and you forget to kind of budget for things like eating at the airport or potentially going out to a restaurant if you're meeting up with friends or whatever it might be. But yeah, we did go a little bit over for dining out total for the month. We also had a couple of events we had to pay for that were like birthdays and dining out when we did get home. So that kind of put us over too. But overall, we were about $500 between those two categories. Fuel, we were well under by about $85 because we were just not using our car much last month. Shopping, we went over, and I purposefully didn't really set a budget for shopping though. And this is because, I didn't know how much I was going to spend. I didn't know what I was going to spend on when I went to Japan. I really just did not know. And simple fact was, I knew that I did want to buy some baby things. But again, I knew we were going to have some leftover money from the entire budget. So I thought whatever, it does end up being, it can just come out of that leftover money anyway, because most of that money was just going to go into our savings account. Next thing was home, which we really didn't spend anything on last month. Gifts. We did actually budget $100 for gifts, but I think I haven't actually logged it in accurately here. So we've got $6.99 in there. That was for a card that we did buy for someone's birthday. But that actual amount for certain gifts actually might have come out of our groceries, because sometimes we will go to the grocery store or we'll go to stores nearby, convenience stores where there's flowers. Sometimes we'll get flowers for people's gifts, or we may get vouchers as well. So actually, I think that's kind of come out of another category here, because we definitely spent more than $6.99 on gifts. Also could have come out of the shopping in Japan one, because I know I did buy some things for my mum for Mother's Day and my mother-in-law as well. So we definitely did spend more than that on gifts. It just didn't get categorized accurately this month. And then for pets, we were about $50 under. Most of that was just pet food. Health and medical, we were a little bit under as well, by about $45. Now, the next amount that was quite substantial for last month was the Japan trip. Again, this was money that we technically had factored in, but not so much into the budget itself. It was about $600, and this was just for accommodation, some extra accommodation that we hadn't yet paid for. So that was just going towards the actual trip itself. However, it was technically factored in, and that was fine. Transport was about $75. That was really just for some taxis that we did get in Japan. We didn't get many because most of the time we were on trains. We were pretty much getting trains from point A to point B everywhere. But there was a couple of circumstances where we did need to get a taxi. License renewal was $70 last month, so usually I wouldn't have that costing, but yeah, that was fun. And so was our mortgage package fee, which I did speak about in the last budget reset video, I believe, and that was $399. And neither one of us, neither Dan or I, actually realized that was going to be taken out last month. We totally just omitted it from our brains. We had no warnings from our bank, and it just like came out, and we were like, oh my God, $400. So definitely wasn't expecting that. But luckily it was a slightly higher earning month. so it didn't hit us too hard. And now going over to our mortgage, and our debt in general. So mortgage, our budget, I budgeted as 2,996, but the actual was 2,929 because our interest rate cut finally came into effect, which was great. It was about a $70 savings, so that was excellent. Credit card, we put about $100 on there. And also our car loan is about $357 a month, so that's pretty standard. So overall, we did have some extra expenses, like I mentioned, that we wouldn't usually. That was mainly to do with our Japan trip and obviously the mortgage package fee. So it was a good thing that I did end up earning a little bit more last month. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't have had much left over at all. But overall, it was a pretty good month. We still had about $1,200 left over, and that was still a good result. So that money will, like I said, absolutely be put to good use. But now we're going to move on to June and set our new budget for the new month. I do have pretty much most of it pre-filled this time around because otherwise it just takes so long when I'm trying to copy and paste everything from the previous month. But if we jump into June, so I've spoken about this before, but ignore the dates because I haven't actually changed them over yet. So the pay days and the due dates, they're actually just old due dates from clearly March's budget, which we still haven't changed. But the actual days of the month usually are the same. So look, June is not looking as favorable, and that is because, like I mentioned, our strata and council rates will be basically coming out this month in total, in full, and that's the decision we made to hold over some more savings from last month a little bit earlier. So income-wise, it is going to be a little bit less this month, and again, this is all after tax. So at the moment, our income is due to be about 7,405, which is pretty standard. I have actually put Dan's pay as still being 4,400, which is probably under budgeting a little bit. But again, I like to do this because Dan's income is based on more of an hourly rate. So we're never really quite sure exactly how much he's going to earn in a month. It depends on the amount of days he's worked. So realistically, I just feel like it's better to under budget a bit. And if it's more, that's great. Sponsorships and YouTube is probably going to be very similar. Our bills are pretty much the same. Again, apart from strata and council, they'll be paid in full. And I believe our water bill is due this month, so that's going to be a thing too. Pretty much most of my subscriptions are staying the same as well in terms of what I'm budgeting. The only thing that's going to be changing here is our health insurance is going up slightly, and also my phone bill is actually dropping but also going up at the same time, which sucks because I've pretty much paid off my phone now. So I'm really just paying the month-to-month cost of, calls, text, everything else, data. So actually it went down to technically $49, but then Vodafone have just decided to increase it by $5 a month. So that was really generous of them. So it's great when you see things like your mortgage go down and then the next minute a subscription will go up. So if you're new to these videos, all the ones in blue, by the way, are my primarily business subscriptions as well. And then the ones down the bottom are kind of personal subscriptions. And you can see here we really don't have any entertainment subscriptions. We just don't have them. We choose not to because it's just too expensive when they all add up. And I have enough as it is business-wise that I have to pay for. So I'm pretty strict on that. Now looking over at expenses in June, things have changed a little bit from last month. And particularly with groceries, that's going up from $300 to $450. Obviously, as I mentioned, we probably weren't going to have as many groceries last month being overseas for part of the month, but this month we're going to be home, so $450 is going to be the budget. Dining out, we're going to be lowering from $600 to $400. Obviously, again, we're not traveling this month, so I'm not really expecting more to be put into dining out. But having said that, we have definitely spent $600 or more before when we've been at home on dining out, because that's kind of our entertainment, I guess. But in terms of this month, I'm really aiming for $400. I want to keep that low. Fuel, we're going to make sure that that is at $200 instead of $150 for this month, because obviously, again, we're going to be at home. We're going to be using our car. We're not going to be traveling as much this month. So pets is pretty much staying the same at $150. That's usually enough for their dog food and some treats, maybe some medication. Health and medical, about $120. That is for, appointments, and especially because I am going through the private system with having a baby in Australia. So there are some other costs associated with that. And then we have a category for this month called baby. So that is going to be currently budgeting about $179. That is for the cot that I've seen at IKEA. So I really want to get that this month. So that is pretty much the changes that we've got in the the expenses section. And then with our debt, we have $2,929 budgeted for the mortgage. We have $95 budgeted for the credit card, and then for the car loan will be $357. So pretty much all very standard there for debt expenses, and pretty much standard for quite a few things this month, I think, compared to previous months. However, we are not going to have a huge total leftover amount. It is only going to be about $132.91. And we knew this was going to happen because of basically making that decision with the strata and council and holding that over until this month. We just knew that that was going to be the case, but really wanted to prioritize leaving a bit more money in our savings accounts, so we could, plan ahead for the baby and plan ahead for other things as well. At this point, that is pretty much it for June. So it's not looking like a great month, but at least we've got some money left over from May, like I said, and we can add that into our savings accounts, and that's going to make our lives a little bit easier. Well, thank you so much for watching this video today, and if you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, make sure you do, because I'll be posting a lot more in future. If you do a monthly budget, let me know how you went in May and how you're going in June. I know it's not just me that's having this break-even month at the moment. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are either struggling or, it's just, it's always hectic when it comes to budgeting. So I would love to hear all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. Also, make sure to hit the notification bell if you want to see more videos from my channel in future. And again, if you want to check out the CoPlenty templates, there is a link in the description box below and a discount code if you're interested in purchasing. But thank you so much, as always, for watching this budget reset video, and I'll see you in the next one.